morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Zion, it is my pleasure to welcome you aboard Flight 12 with service to Jerusalem. We will be traveling to Jerusalem approximately 841 BC, where Joram and Athaliah nearly destroyed the Davidic dynasty, but God intervened. That preservation wasn't just about keeping Judah's monarchy alive. It was about safeguarding the line that would lead to the Messiah. Those turbulent stories were really seeing God's faithfulness to his covenant and his plan for redemption through Jesus. Ladies and gentlemen, boarding is now complete. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened and all personal items are stowed. Tray tables are in their full upright position. The captain has given us the okay. We are now ready to depart. Second Chronicles 22. Ahaziah reigns in Judah. Then the people of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, the youngest son of Jehoram, king in his place, since the raiders who had came into the camp with the Arabs had killed all the older sons. So Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, became king of Judah. Ahaziah was 22 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 1 year. His mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri. What it's not saying is her mother was Jezebel and her father was King Ahab of Israel, and they married to form alliance. And you see that throughout history where kings would give their daughters to other kings so that they can form like this political alliance between their lands. Ahaziah also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor in wickedness. And he did evil in the sight of the Lord, as the house of Ahab had done. For to his destruction they were his counselors after the death of his father. Ahaziah also followed their counsel and went with Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, to fight against Hazael, king of Aram, at Ramoth Gilead. But the Arameans wounded Joram, so he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wound they had inflicted on him at Ramah. When he fought against Hazael, king of Aram, then Ahaziah, son of Jehoram, king of Judah, went down to Jezreel to visit Joram, son of Ahab, because Joram had been wounded. Ahaziah's downfall came from God when he went to visit Joram. When Ahaziah arrived, he went out from Joram to meet Jehu, son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to destroy the house of Ahab. That's crazy, because the house of Ahab is of Israel. So while Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, he found the rulers of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's brothers who were serving Ahaziah, and he killed them. Then Jehu looked for Ahaziah, and Jehu's soldier captured him while he was hiding in Samaria. So Ahaziah was brought to Jehu and put to death. They buried him, for they said he is the grandson of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So no one was left from the house of Ahaziah with the strength to rule the kingdom. So we're going to glean from this, even though people fail, God still keeps his promises. And he will use wicked nations to punish Israel. Israel, throughout this whole story, no matter who you are. You can be a Hebrew Israelite and say you keep all the commandments, laws, and statutes. They still failed. Everywhere you turn in this Bible, I don't care what generation you are in, there's always where Israel's unfaithfulness is brought to the light, but God keeps his promise. No matter how many stories and genealogies you go through, there's always this consistent theme of God's faithfulness, not Israel's. Israel's faithfulness is never, ever saved them. It's always been God's faithfulness. People fail, but God doesn't. So we see here God again using a wicked nation or a wicked king to punish his people. I mean, we can look at today's time. Is this probably the same theme? Who knows? Verse 10. When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she proceeded to annihilate all the royal heirs of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeath, which I believe is her sister, daughter of King Jehoram, took Joash, son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the sons of the king who were being murdered. And she put him and his nurse in a bedroom, because Jehoshabeath, the daughter of King Jehoram, and the wife of Jehoiada, the priest, was Ahaziah's sister. She hid Joash from Athaliah so that she could not kill him. So she was, this lady, God is using, he's moving her, he's working through her to take this child, Joash, who is in the line of Judah, and stash him away with the nursemaid so that he wouldn't be caught in the purge of Athaliah. And Joash remained hidden with them in the house of God for 6 years while Athaliah ruled the land. Now I'm going to slaughter these words. I apologize. Then in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself and made a covenant with the commanders of hundreds, with Azariah, son of Jeroham, Ishmael, son of Jehohanan, Azariah, son of Obed, Maaseiah, son of Adiah, and Elisaphat, son of Zikri, so that they went throughout Judah and gathered the Levites from all the cities of Judah and the heads of the families of Israel. And when they came to Jerusalem, the whole assembly made a covenant with the king in the house of God. Behold, the king's son, said Jehoiada, he must reign just as the Lord promised concerning the descendants of David. This is what you are to do. A third of you priests and Levites who come on duty on the Sabbath shall keep watch at the doors. A third shall be at the royal palace, and a third at the foundation gate, while all others are to be in the courtyards of the house of the Lord. A lot of people think that the Levites were priests. No, they were also soldiers. We call them soldiers. We call them police. Definitely not peacekeepers. I don't even know why police have that title, because they're not peacekeepers. But they were also soldiers. That was one of their duties. Verse 6. No one is to enter the house of the Lord except the priests and those Levites who serve. They may enter because they are consecrated, but all the people are to obey the requirement of the Lord. The Levites must surround the king with weapons in hand. There's a big hint. The Levites wasn't just peaceful priests. They were soldiers. They were keeping the law or enforcing it. And anyone who enters the temple must be put to death. See what happens? Why the law is a ministry of death? If you break it, you must stay close to the king wherever he goes. So the Levites and all Judah did everything that Jehoiada the priest had ordered. Each of them took his man, those coming on duty on the Sabbath, and those going off duty, for Jehoiada the priest had not released any of the divisions. This was all military. Then Jehoiada the priest gave to the commanders of hundreds the spears and the large and small shields of King David that were in the house of God. He stationed all the troops with their weapons in hand surrounding the king by the altar in the temple, from the south side to the north side of the temple. Then Jehoiada and his sons brought out the king's son, put the crown on him, presented him with the testimony, and proclaiming him king, they anointed him and shouted, "Long live the king." So they anointed Joash as king of Judah, and this whole thing is a siege. So they're about to, as you say, do a coup and take back the throne from Athaliah, who's ruling as queen regent. I think she's like the only queen regent listed in Israel. But of course, she usurped that by force, lethal force. When Athaliah heard the noise of the people running and cheering the king, she went out to them in the house of the Lord, and she looked and saw the king standing by his pillar at the entrance. The officers and trumpeters were beside the king, and all the people of the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets, while the singers with musical instruments were leading the praises. Then Athaliah tore her clothes and screamed, "Treason! Treason!" Because thanks to the sister of her son, she had stashed Joash. There will always be someone of David's lineage to sit on the throne. That was one of the promises of God. And Jehoiada the priest sent out the commanders of hundreds in charge of the army, saying, "Bring her out between the ranks and put to the sword anyone who follows her." For the priest had said, "She must not be put to death in the house of the Lord." So they seized Athaliah as she reached the entrance of the horse gate on the palace grounds, and they put her to death. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between himself and the king and the people that they would be the Lord's people. So all the people went to the temple of Baal and tore it down, because when Ahab had married Jezebel, of course they kind of brought in some of that culture. Moreover, Jehoiada put the oversight of the house of the Lord into the hands of the Levitical priests, whom David had appointed over the house of the Lord, to offer burnt offerings to the Lord as written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and song as ordained by David. He stationed gatekeepers at the gates of the house of the Lord, so that no one who was in any way unclean could enter. And he took with him the commanders of hundreds, the nobles, the rulers of the people, and all the people of the land, and they brought the king down from the house of the Lord and entered the royal palace through the upper gate. They seated King Joash on the royal throne, and all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet because Athaliah had been put to the sword. Joash was 7 years old when he became king. Remember, they hit him, he was a baby. And he reigned, maybe a toddler, probably between 1 and 2. Well, I want to say a baby because I think she reigned 6 to 7 years. So he was a baby. He became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah. She was from Beersheba. And Joash did what was right in the eyes of the Lord all the days of Jehoiada the priest. Jehoiada took for him 2 wives, and he had sons and daughters. Sometime later, Joash set his heart on repairing the house of the Lord. So he gathered the priests and Levites and said, "Go out to the cities of Judah and collect the money due annually from all Israel to repair the house of your God. Do it quickly." The Levites, however, did not make haste, so the king called Jehoiada the high priest and said, Why have you not required the Levites to bring from Judah and Jerusalem the tax imposed by Moses, the servant of the Lord, and by the assembly of Israel for the tent of testimonies? For the sons of that wicked woman Athaliah had broken into the house of God, and had even used the sacred objects of the house of the Lord for the Baals. At the king's command, a chest was made and placed outside at the gate of the house of the Lord, and a proclamation was issued in Judah and Jerusalem that they were to bring to the Lord the tax imposed by Moses, the servant of God, on Israel in the wilderness. All the officers and all the people rejoiced and brought their contributions, and they dropped them in the chest until it was full. Just for time's sake, Jehoiada had died at the age of 130. They had finished building the house of God, and when Jehoiada died, his son Zechariah stepped in. But by this time, Joash had went dark, and so Joash had Zechariah killed. Okay, and so then this set the tone of their downfall again.